At this point, I think it would be a good idea to show you how our farm would look a bit different than a conventional farm or the industrial farming type model. So one of the top guiding principles on this farm is permaculture. Again, without going into great detail, permaculture is a way to take a piece of land and use many different kinds of plants and animals in a way where they're beneficial to one another, and it produces more abundance, and it doesn't destroy the soil in the process. We will be developing silvopasture. What is silvopasture? That's pasture land with trees. As you can see here, we've started work on this already. Conventional silvopasture normally has all the undergrowth with just the trees remaining. Ours is special in that we have strips of native vegetation between lanes of our silvopasture. We will practice selective cutting of trees instead of clear cutting of trees. That way we always have trees in our forested areas. We'll be planting native fruit trees and vegetation in our silvopasture. So you might have native orange trees here, an avocado tree here, or a cherry tree here. You would not plant an apple tree in this kind of climate because it just wouldn't do well. We'll be seeking out areas for decentralized gardening, an area such as maybe here where the microclimate may be favorable for something like a mushroom. So you have mushrooms growing here where you don't have to create an artificial environment for that type of plant, and you can have an abundant harvest. Along with decentralized gardening, we'll be doing raised bed gardening. Just to note, this raised bed garden we haven't done anything with in 2 years. And we'll be doing some conventional row gardening. Here's an area that we tried to prepare about 6 months ago, and we'll have to do some work on it. Though it's not real big now, we'll be making our mulch pile and our compost piles much bigger. We'll be using large amounts of compost. And what will we use that compost for? It'll be rejuvenation for our pasture land, for our garden areas, and also for our grass. In the future, the vast majority of the animals that we'll have here will be grass eaters. So it's important to keep the health of your grass and weeds high so that they have plenty of food to eat. So I'll turn our attention to our animals. Right now we have 1 goat and a bunch of chickens, and there is so much that I could say on what we do with them, but I don't want to go into all the details, so I'll try to hit the highlights. Our animals, we try to keep them as whole as possible. We're not cutting off beaks, we're not clipping wings, we're not slicing them and dicing them and putting holes in them while they're living with us. We keep them as whole as possible. Same thing with our goat. The other thing too is we don't like their home being in the same place every single night. So with Bucky's home, we move it usually once a week. With the chickens, and I'll go over to their home as I'm explaining this, we move them every single day. So what are the advantages to moving? Well, for instance, at night, the chickens, they go into these movable shelters on these wagons, which means their manure is not building up in one place. It drops out of the wagon each night. What's the advantage to that? Well, it's spreading it out. It's not concentrating it. It doesn't stink. The sun bathes it every day and helps to destroy pathogens. Even as I'm walking around their shelter right now, there's a little bit of manure in them, and it doesn't stink. It also helps to confuse predators. So far, we haven't lost an adult chicken. Not one, which is unusual. We also try to provide them shade, and of course we give them food and water. The goat, he mainly eats grass, so we don't really have to supplement him a whole lot. The chickens, they're special because they're an omnivore, so we do give them like a conventional, half conventional, half organic mix, and we also feed them a lot of scraps. I can't tell you how many times I've seen these ladies eating lizards and crickets and bugs and little frogs and things like that. They're great to have around because they do a good job of sanitization. They sanitize or clean up the pasture. And after they do all that eating and sleeping, the ladies will produce eggs, and those eggs will be a valuable nutrient-dense food source. So it's a little difficult to describe what you do with the larger animals, but I'll do my best since we don't have any right now. Like Bucky, our goat, you could put them on a leash with a long string or chain. You could even put them on a zip line and they'll get more distance. One of the other things we'll probably start doing when we get some animals is creating smaller paddocks in the silvopasture and out here in the open spot, and we'll move them each day from paddock to paddock. And what this does is it allows the grass to grow back, so they're not constantly chopping down short grass, but they're going from one paddock to another. It's essentially giving them a fresh salad bar. And one of the other concepts that I'm looking into, haven't done a whole lot of research on, but would love to explore, is the art of shepherding, where essentially you don't really have too many fences, but you would have to have somebody watching the animals virtually all the time. We will attempt to practice good water management. So here in South Central Florida, there's plenty of water available during the summertime. But as mentioned already, a lot of it dries up in the wintertime. So how do you manage your water? How do you keep your plants and your trees fed during the wintertime if the water dries up? Are you going to have to pipe some of it in? Are you going to have to use pipes and pumps or some kind of a canal system? Well, one of the things we want to try to do is increase the organic matter of our soil. What that does is it helps to hold more moisture in the soil. In other words, we want to keep that raindrop as close to where it landed and then disperse it back out into the atmosphere as slowly as possible. And that way we have better plant growth. So behind me is our equipment shed. We don't have a lot of big equipment. It's mostly small. You know, the idea here is to be using your hands as much as possible, not big equipment. So we don't need big engines and motors, a bunch of whirling PTO shafts and hydraulic systems. Not saying that you're not going to use those at all. I mean, there are going to be times where you have to use equipment like that, but we want to use it far and few between. We want more people here using their hands and simple tools than a bunch of heavy-duty machinery. Okay, I think I talked long enough. What do you think, Bucky? Are we good? Can I wrap this up? Enough rambling idiocy for now. So please let me know what you thought. If you like this concept, this idea of farming, I'd like to hear it. Any questions, comments, and concerns, please contact me and let me know what you thought. And I guess that's about it. So I'll say goodbye for now. See you all again soon.